Welcome to Raf's Cast, Episode 3. This week's guest is Isobar Senior Copywriter and alumni Kelly Finnamore. Kelly was part of the class of 2011 on our Mohawk advertising program. He was extremely involved in the program on everything creative. He did extremely well, and his success extended to his professional life. After almost a decade as a copywriter, he will give us his impression on the industry and how he sees the future for ed students. Thank you very much, and let's start. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. All right. Raf's Cast, Episode 4, Kelly Finnamore. And I have here our great alumni who is now working at Isobar. And how are you doing, Kelly?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Kelly has been such an amazing student of our program. We have so many stories to tell, Kelly, about the photo sessions and the art direction and everything that happens at the college.
Oh, I had a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well in the industry and you're still working as a super professional, and that's what I expect from students. So I'm super glad.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's great that you brought up the photography because I've totally kept that with me ever since college. I got into photography through your class, and just ever since then, I've been going out and taking photos, of people, of my motorcycle, of just nature. It's been fantastic. So that was something that actually really, really stuck with me from your class.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we tried. It's amazing you mentioned that, because there's actually a few students who left our program to become photographers.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
Fantastic.
After the class, and it was unintentional, but if it works for the student, for me, it's all good.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So let's start a little bit about your past experience after the college, and we're coming back to the college later on in the interview. So I know that you started on an amazing journey to Kristen Porter in Boulder, Colorado, and the fearless saying on everything. How was that whole thing, Kelly? That's an amazing story to tell.
That whole thing was a dream. It was actually quite unbelievable that I made it there. It was one of those things that an internship opportunity opened up down in Boulder to work with Crispin Porter McGusky. And I didn't apply because I figured there's so many people who wanted to get in. There's no way I'm getting in. Like, my work's not that great. But another student who I work with now and I went to school with at Mohawk, Emma, she convinced me to put my portfolio forward and apply for that internship. And somehow I got it. And then, the next thing I know, I was headed down to Boulder. I was working at Crispin Porter McGusky. And a massive agency from people all around the world on some pretty big clients. And it was quite crazy actually going from the college setting to the agency setting in such a big way. It was overwhelming in a way, but it was a lot of fun to go down there and actually work with, the people who I'd been watching videos about for all these years, like Rob Riley, Jeff Benjamin. Alex Pogusky had left the agency at that point. Mm-hmm. But he still lived in Boulder, and I got in contact with him saying, I was coming down from Canada and I wanted to meet him. So I actually went to his place and I got to meet him and hang out with him for a little bit, which was great. He was one of my advertising idols.
Oh my God. So you did the whole checklist.
Yeah, I did everything. Everything when I was down there. It was such a beautiful place. It was actually the healthiest I've ever been, because after work every day, everybody wanted to go on hikes up mountains because we were right on the Rockies. It was fantastic.
Oh my God, I'm jealous of this. Going to the Rockies after the work, it would be a dream.
Yeah. And the work there too was really interesting because it was a real agency. So I was getting that experience of working with ACDs and ECDs and real clients and doing real client pitches. These are things that, I had practiced in Mohawk, but it's one thing doing it for an agency in Mohawk or for other students, but it's a whole different kind of thing when you're with real clients. And I was super nervous at first, didn't know what I was doing at first, but, over time it got much better. But it was a fantastic learning experience down there.
It began to everything to make sense to come together.
Yeah. And it was cool because I was working with, I think, 12 or 13 other interns from all around the world. So we were all kind of being thrown into that position together. So it was a learning experience for all of us. So we got to learn from each other as well as the people who were teaching us, because we had coaches down there essentially. So I was working with a senior copywriter down there who was teaching me how to do better writing and how to do better presentations. So yeah, it was great.
Talking about being great, you went directly to be a copywriter at Saatchi. How was that experience?
That was another crazy experience. I didn't think that it would happen like that, because in college there was always talk about how difficult it would be to get into an agency full time after working. There's a lot of things that had to go right for people to get a job, and for me it was luck. It was essentially luck. The right things happened at the right time. When I was at Crispin, I got offered a job to work at Saatchi & Saatchi back in Toronto.
Oh my God. Okay.
I went from working in Boulder to coming home to getting a weekend off and then going straight to work at Saatchi & Saatchi with Brian and Helen. It was another crazy adventure working in a real life advertising agency here in Toronto.
Can you tell one client at work at that time that really stands out as a project that you like it a lot at Saatchi?
So at Saatchi, I was mainly working on Toyota Canada. And I think one of the biggest, best, most fun projects I got to work on was something we titled The Most Glorious Survey Ever. And what that was Toyota came to us with a brief saying, we want to know more about our customer base. We want to know what vehicles they're driving, what color vehicles they like the best. We want to know some kind of like personality questions, I guess. So what kind of music do they listen to? What do they do for fun? They just wanted to get more information about their customer base. So our ask was to put a survey on Facebook and just ask our fan base those questions. And to us, that seemed really boring because nobody wants to really fill out a survey online, just tick boxes. So we kind of upped that and we made this entirely interactive experience that was video driven. So I would go on a website, themostglorioussurveyever.com, and I would start answering these survey questions. But when I did, I would see a video experience happen as a Rube Goldberg. So a cannon would fire and that cannon would cause bottles to fall over, which would lead me to a question about what's my favorite color? If my favorite color is red, then red paint would spill. And all these different interactions would happen as I was filling out answers to the survey.
That's never heard about a way to make a survey being fun.
Yeah, like that. It was one of those.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's one of those things that, you come up with this idea of doing something crazy and your creative directors totally back you and your client totally backs you. And then all of a sudden you're making this amazing kind of piece of survey for people to fill out. And, a lot of people interacted with it.
I always heard is those crazy ideas, Kelly, that is how to break something that there's no way to make it people really like to do it. And you make it something enjoyable. And this is something very hard to do. So congrats, man.
Yeah, thanks.
So you stay a while for Saatchi, and I see here that you went to L'Eau Roche, Juniper Park, and DSP.
Yeah.
Tell about that experience on those agencies to us. Something that here. Yeah.
So I kind of went place to place for a little while. It was a series of random events from Saatchi and Saatchi. I actually got in touch with another Mohawk student who I went to school with, Matt Camara.
Yes.
He was working at L'Eau Roche at the time, and he was wondering if I wanted to partner up with him and work with him.
I love Matt. Yeah, he's great.
Working with Matt was an amazing experience as well because he is such a great art director. So I had the opportunity to come in and work for L'Eau Roche for a little while. Unfortunately, L'Eau Roche closed down here in Toronto. So him and I both moved to TBWA, and I think within a week of us working there, they announced that they were merging with Juniper Park. So we went from TBWA to Juniper Park, and then Doug's DSP, which is now Doug and Partners. We both went together. And throughout these experiences, I got to work with many, many different clients, many, many different people. You had Sarah Quinto on your podcast. I got to work with her at TBWA and Juniper Park. She was amazing to work with. And from Doug Surge, I went to client side. Actually, I wanted to give that a little bit of a try and see things from a point of view. which is when I went to Spin Master, which was a toy company. So I got to work on Hatchimals and do a lot of jingles and TV spots for kids, which was
How was being in control of the whole copy for one client only, and you need to really make that happen? How was the experience being in house?
So it was a completely different experience. It was not being just a writer. It was being a writer, an account person, a director, a producer, everything, because they have strict roles, copywriter, art director, but we end up doing a lot of things just because everything is so fast paced. So it was quite interesting as a writer working on something like Hatchimals and kids toys, because that was a voice that I had never used before. Prior to this, I had mainly worked on automotive. So I've been working at Toyota and Nissan and Honda. But then I went to Spin Master and I was doing jingles for children on television, which was, like I said, it was a big learning experience, figuring out how to do a song as a kid. And I think one of the bigger things I learned at Spin Master was how to be confident in doing presentations. Because when you're presenting a jingle, you have to sing that jingle to an entire group of people who are wearing suits.
God, okay.
I am not a singer by any means. I'm horrible at singing. But it was one of those things that you get confident with doing it over time. And the better you can present it, the better you can sell it, and the more things you get to make. So that was a huge learning experience just in itself, learning how to write and sing and do jingles.
That's an amazing thing, because I was talking about somebody else in the industry today, and that person told me exactly the importance of presentations on the industry and how students should pay attention and practice that as much as they can.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think that is something that I didn't really learn early on. I know when I was at Mohawk, we did presentations to fellow classmates and teachers, but I was always really nervous doing that. And I don't think I worked on it as much as I should have. And it wasn't actually until I started working with Matt Camara where I really kind of honed in on that presentation skill, because he is an amazing presenter. He's fantastic at standing in front of a group of people and just getting into it and presenting this project like it's the best thing he's ever worked on in his entire life, even if it's just something simple like a single frame banner. He'll present that thing like it's the best project ever. And I think working with him and just seeing how he could control a room really taught me how to kind of hone in on that skill and do better. So absolutely, when you say that students should spend some time on their presentation skills, they definitely should as early as they can, and just do things that make them feel uncomfortable. So sing a jingle in a room. And those are the things that'll really make them better at their job when they get into the industry.
Yeah, that's amazing that you mentioned those words, control the room and have ownership of the people who are you presenting to. That is not an easy skill to have at all.
Yeah, and he just did it so well. It was amazing to watch. It was an amazing thing to watch. And then, because the interesting thing is, when I went from Doug and Partners to Spin Master and then to GTB, when I started working at GTB, people there would specifically point out the fact that they loved how I would present in a room, and the clients would love the way that I would be excited about every single little thing that I was talking about in a Facebook carousel. And I got all of that from just working with Matt. And it was one of those things that just seeing somebody else do it really well just inspired me to want to do better.
That's a great insight. Kelly. Talking about directly then, going to GTB. Did you work with Brad there? Brad Correa, Ricardo?
Yeah, I did work with him. Yeah. He's a really nice guy. I really enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
He's very smart too. The thing about him too is that he's not only thinking about the projects that he's currently working on, he's also thinking of, hey, we could do this, and like if we sell this to client, we could win a ton of awards with it, or like this would be a fantastic thing to change the way that people think about this certain product. He's always thinking about how we could do things better for the client, which was amazing to see.
How about your experience there with Ford?
Yeah, so working with Ford was one of those things that I never would have thought I ever would have worked on growing up, because my family had a lot of Fords growing up. So going from or being able to work on Ford was pretty cool. I got to go to Detroit. I got to present to clients in Detroit at the Ford headquarters, which was something that I never thought I would do. But yeah, like they were a great client. We did a lot of good work with them.
Have you went to the Ford Museum and everything? I went there. It's amazing place there.
No, I did not get to go there, but yeah, I heard it was a pretty cool
next
place.
time. Next time.
Yeah.
But you have to present directly to the headquarters then.
Yeah, so we
Some
did
of the campaigns.
Yeah, I worked on, it was a global pitch that I was working on down there. So I was part of
Wow.
a massive team who was, presenting work globally. So I didn't have to do any major presentations there because I was a small part of a very large group. So higher up people were doing the presentations globally, but I definitely got to work on some pretty cool things for that pitch down there.
That went directly to, then after a year and a half there, you went to Isobar.
Yeah, I'm at Isobar now, currently working on a competitor to Ford. I'm working on General Motors.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear. So it's funny how GM also left the McCann hierarchy for so many years, and now it's kind of distributed on the group.
Yeah, so the stuff I do now for GM is retail. It's all on the retail level. So we'll deal with a lot of advertising for the dealerships and a lot of offer-heavy material.
Okay.
We also do work for certified service, which is lube oil and filters, that type of thing, servicing vehicles. So it's a completely different thing as well, going from brand to retail. Retail is actually a lot of fun, even though a lot of people think of it as being kind of like a lower tier. You can still have a lot of fun with putting these offers together and putting really good creative together.
Do you think it's even more challenging for a copywriter to be in the retail part of it?
In a way, it is more challenging because you have less room to do things that are considered creative. So me personally, I do a lot of radio that has to deal with offer heavy material. So I need to fit in an offer plus legal in 30 seconds, plus anything fun or anything that you would consider creative within that space. So it's challenging in that respect, is meeting character counts and meeting time counts. But in terms of the work and presenting fun ideas and great ideas to clients, it's pretty much the exact same. We're still presenting that work and we're still doing great work for those clients. So, yeah.
From all those spaces that you have worked with, you don't need to name the agency, but which agency provide you with the best environment to work with when it comes to people and resources and the collaboration, that kind of stuff, Kelly?
They all have their positives. I think right now we're in an interesting time being with COVID, that we get to work from home, which is a fantastic environment to me. I think every single agency, I've been very fortunate with being able to work with a great group of people. And I've always had really good partners along the way who have made those experiences a lot of fun. So there's no like one, I guess, agency that's better than the other in terms of environment. They're all very similar. And I think the cultures are all very similar across all of these agencies. The one outlier being Spin Master, because it was client side. So that was a little bit different in terms of the environment, because it was more client, it was more insurance company feeling, like it was cubicles.
Okay.
But yeah, the rest of them were all fantastic environments. I think the really cool thing when I first started working at Isobar was that it was the only agency that there was no assigned seating. So I don't have a desk at Isobar. It's wherever I feel like sitting any day, I'll just go and sit there. So there's couches, there's desks, there's like these cool lounge chairs. There used to be a hammock. Yeah, so they all have their own different little quirks and their own different little positives, but they've all been fantastic in their own way.
So, talking about hammocks and working from home and environments, what do you think will happen after COVID is gone?
I think,
yeah.
I think people are going to have an interesting time learning how to talk to people again and how to be in rooms full of people again. It's going to be a very interesting transition if we end up working at the office again, because people will want to keep their distance. Meetings will be a whole different thing. I don't know. there's been certain meetings where the room is way too small for the amount of people who are in that meeting. So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
how they deal with those types of meetings. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. I think it'll be a very interesting time when we go back and try to figure these things out together, because nobody really knows the right thing to do until we actually do it.
Do you think it'll be a hybrid between working from home and working at the space? Like Microsoft just released a note that saying that people can work from home or 50% at their office or something like that.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be the case. I know we're not going back anytime soon that I know of.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, I would assume that they're probably going to have a little bit more leniency on working from home. Isobar was always good at that, even prior to COVID. They were always set up as a digital agency where you could realistically work from anywhere you had an internet connection. So if we wanted to work from home, we just sent a message on Slack, say, working from home today. And everyone was cool with it. Unless there was a meeting that you had to be downtown with, they were pretty good at just allowing people to work from wherever they wanted to work from. So it's not a huge change. Luckily, we were set up and ready to deal with something like this. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2021.
Yeah, I can imagine how the logistics of HR and everything will have to work. But I think if it works in a good way a whole year, there's no reason why it shouldn't be work in a hybrid method, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that. I think there is something really nice about being in a room with people. That the hardest part for me, I found, is actually coming back to presenting work. It's very difficult to present work over a Zoom call, even if that Zoom call is on video, because not everybody wants to be on video at the same time, myself included. You wake up and you just get on the computer and bedhead and all that stuff.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to present good work to a client because you aren't with that person. You don't see that person. You don't see if you're saying the right things, or you don't see if they're getting excited about the idea. It's very tough.
It is. It's not the same thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Hmm.
It's another skill that we need to develop, I think.
I just want to know what's going to happen with shaking hands. Are we going to go to the elbow bump or like the foot bump? So that'll be an interesting thing too.
If I have, for me, if I had a vaccine destination, I don't care. I would just do shake hands, no issue.
Yeah, no,
But
exactly.
but I know that it would be a little bit of time before everybody was comfortable again
Hmm.
to do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
let's see.
it's all going to be learning. It's all going to be fantastic to just go through it and see how it ends up.
How about your time at Mohawk? Can you tell us one or two things that you remember the most about your time there, Kelly?
Yeah, for sure. The one thing that I remember the most, well, there's many things. The people there were amazing to be with. Our class was a lot of fun. Everyone got along really well. We were all just became very good friends in the years that we were there. The one big thing that stands out is that we were part of MCA, which is now called the agency, I believe.
Yes.
And when we first started, we we had a very tiny little broom closet in a hallway that was
Oh
one of
yes.
the offices.
The dungeon.
Yeah, the
That was
dungeon.
called dungeon.
Is that something that is still used? I think right now
No,
you guys have a
they ripped that part of, completely, and now we have a quarter of a whole wing as the agency. So now we have a tons of space there.
yeah. So this is akin to I used to walk both ways uphill to school. Back in the day when I was there, we were in that little tiny broom closet of a dungeon, and it fit 4 or 5 people, but there was 9 or 10 of us. Like we would go in that room, and there was no windows. If the lights went off, people would just be illuminated by the glow of their laptops. So that's something that I remember, is being in that little room and doing work, and we had a ton of fun doing it.
Yeah, now it's everything. Of course, we're running the agency remotely, but at the time, I remember that space, and I think 1 or 2 years after you left, or 3 years, I don't know, a few years after you left, we got to the new space, and the new space it's huge, so completely different setup, but the kind of mentality of people working together is the same. So at least the spirit of that small room kept the same. So
No, that's awesome. No, that's great to hear. I'm glad it really took off, and they have a great space to work in now. Not that our space was bad. We did a lot of good work there, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
yes. What else, Kelly, on the
So
college memories?
another thing, we were talking about photography before. We had to do this awesome magazine layout thing in your class. And that's when we would design a magazine layout, and then we would actually go out and take photos to fill that magazine, and we would go all over Hamilton to do it. And you really had to think about what kind of picture you were taking. You wanted consistency in these photos, so you wanted to find a space that could give you that consistency. And we went down to the waterfront to take these pictures. And I think that was the one of the things that got me even more into photography was going down there, planning it out, taking these pictures, and actually seeing it in a finished layout. That was something that I got to build. So that was something that really stuck with me too, was just doing that as a class and seeing these things go from a sketch to a final product and seeing how everybody did it their own way. We had a ton of fun doing that as a class. Actually,
Yeah,
that was fun.
I think that was a great project. I think it's all the results. Every time they surprise me how people take their time and take their passion and really are direct at how it's structured together. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's great to hear.
and I look back on those photos now, and I think they're absolutely terrible years after taking them.
But
Just
that's normal with when you're starting. So
yeah, yeah.
you need to make the best as you can with the knowledge you can, and then you're going to be better and better, as you know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
We, we did our little strobe sessions. So remember that?
Yeah, we did a lot of those.
Yes.
Those were a ton of fun as well. And that was all after hours, just getting together because I wanted to learn more about photography. And it wasn't just me, it was me and you, and there's other students involved. And those sessions were great in teaching me how to be better with lighting, which is a very tough thing to do.
It is. It's not easy at all. But at least I guarantee now that when you go to shootings and that kind of stuff, you know what a person is doing
Oh, yeah.
with the lighting and everything. Yeah. So
I got lucky too because my wife is into photography as well. She used to take wedding photos. So we're both into it.
oh
We have a ton of cameras here, and she's cool with spending a little bit of money on lighting and flashes.
oh, I saw your background there. So tons of different cameras and everything. The
Yeah, these
background
are
on your video. Yeah.
all old film cameras and tons of old lenses, and it's really cool. I haven't even tried them all.
Shame on you.
I know, I know. I got to get out there more. I got to go do more photography.
All right. So it gets a time now when I have to ask you, what are the real recommendations to current students on second and third year and first year?
Recommendations. So I think we touched on it a little bit. I think they need to really focus on presentation skills as early as
Yes.
you can, and again, because the better that you present, the more work you're going to sell, and the more, I guess, value you're going to be bringing to the agency you're working for. So, a big recommendation is try to get comfortable being super uncomfortable. And I know at Mohawk, the teachers are very good at getting people in front of the class to doing these presentations. So, the more that you can volunteer to be the one leading, the better. Other recommendations, I think, build your book and spend the time on building your portfolio now. It's really nice being in school and having unlimited budgets and unlimited lack of oversight where it's just you and maybe one or two other people who are weighing in on these ideas. So really take the time to enjoy the fact that you can do whatever you want. And the earlier you start and the earlier you start showing your book to people and getting feedback, you can kind of hone your ideas to make it better by the time you graduate. And with that portfolio, I think it's very important to get that work out into the industry. So send people emails, talk to them on LinkedIn, talk to them on wherever, because the majority of people will reply to you. If we ever get a portfolio, I'm happy to look at them. My partners are happy to look at them. If an art director talks to me, I'll always forward them to my partner who's an art director, and he is happy to look at these kind of things and give feedback on that work. And I think overall, just try to play nice with everyone, because the people who you are in class with right now will be your coworkers one day. So These are people who will be your creative directors and your partners and the account people you'll be working with, strategists. You'll be working with all of them, your year, the year ahead of you, the year behind you. It's a very small industry. And I'm sure a lot of people say that it is a very small industry, but everybody knows everybody.
But it's good to reinforce every time. Trust me. It's good to reinforce for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to burn bridges.
No, exactly. I mean, you can, you definitely don't want to try to burn bridges. And what's great about that is that the majority of people are nice. I've had great luck with working with amazing people, and I've never really had to work with any bad ones. So the industry is a very nice industry.
How about, you're talking about people sending you books to review. What are the common mistakes you see on books that you say, oh my God, that again, or there's the stuff that you couldn't give as a recommendation to creative students to change?
Yeah, for sure. I remember being asked this question 4 or 5 years ago, and it was, what was one thing that you would recommend people put in a portfolio, especially writers? And I would say, do long copy ads, like just do lots of long copy ads, because nobody was doing them, and still nobody is doing them because they have died out. Apparently, I worked on one long copy ad, and I think it was when I first started working at Saatchi & Saatchi. So that is no longer my advice. If you want to put in a long copy ad to show off your beautiful writing skills, by all means do it.
But that's for it. But only for that.
Only for that. I don't know that people are necessarily looking for long copy ads anymore. I think some of the biggest issues that I see and that my partner sees, because him and I had this conversation about what are some big issues, and a lot of them have to do with ideas not being mocked up. So you'll see a great idea put in a flat JPEG, and that's it. You don't see this image being mocked up into a magazine or billboard ad, or they don't put the idea into a context or bring it to life in some way. I think that's something that should really be done, is that students should put their idea or their print ad into a print layout or into a billboard layout. The more that you can bring that idea to life, the better it ends up being. I think another common issue that we see is that people, when they present their work in a portfolio, they don't always tell a story around the work that they're presenting. So, an example would be a student would come in and say, here's a print ad I made. Cool, you made a print ad. I'd like to know the story behind it. So how did you come up with that idea? Was there a specific strategy that you were trying to follow? Why did you pick blue? Just the story that you built around that idea helps sell it through to me. And I think just doing that shows the ability to have a well-rounded thought.
I think there's people who say, if you have to explain an ad, it doesn't work. It's not working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to explain that ad. I think it's nice to be able to explain the background of that ad.
About the process to get into the ad.
Yeah. And I know when I was at Crispin, their biggest thing was, if you can't explain an idea in a tweet, then it's a bad idea, which I don't necessarily agree with. But the way that they went about it, they would present every idea as a tweet or as a newspaper headline, which was something that we used to do in Mohawk as well, was come up with a newspaper headline for the idea. So being able to explain the idea in a very short amount of time is fantastic. But I think in that conversation, when we're looking at portfolios, if I ask a question about the strategy or why you did a certain thing, it's always nice to just be able to explain it and be able to talk to it, because in the real world, you're probably going to get these questions from a client anyways, of why did you do a certain thing a certain way.
That's great, especially the idea of explaining with a tweet. That's a great insight. Maybe we should try to do something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Crispin's doing quite well for themselves, so there is definitely some truth in explaining an idea in a tweet.
Kelly, how about craft? Do you think students should worry a lot about learning the tools and everything on over the top on everything? Or they should just say, I need to know enough to handle myself, and then production will do the rest, producers and designers? How that works?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you wanted to go about just learning enough to get in the industry, sure. I'm sure that works for people. The more you can learn about different things, the better. I learned at Mohawk how to essentially be an art director. I would be a horrible art director, which is why I'm a writer now. But I did learn the Adobe suites, and I learned how to use Premiere, Photoshop and InDesign. And those things are really important to learn because you can essentially help your partner out, or you can help the agency out, or you can help your own projects out if you know how to do these things. So if I have an idea and I can pitch that idea internally to my creative director better by putting something in a layout or putting some super quick video together, then that's better for the entire process. So me learning how to do all those things does help. So I would say the more that you can learn about the entire process, the better, because you're then a better asset to not only yourself, but to your partner and your agency and producers and anybody who works around you.
Well, that's it. I think I will play that 100 times on my classes.
Yeah, well, hey, I learned these programs in your classes.
That's good, but I always need to reinforce. But thank you very much, Kelly, for the inspiring words on that. I have one last question to you that it will be a little bit of controversy.
Oh, great!
But what do you think? What do you think of the state of the whole Black Lives Matter and the whole revolution and then elections in the U.S. and the whole COVID thing and the whole world and the state it is right now and the equality for women and diversity? How do you think the industry will become in the next year and the next decade? What do you think will change? And it's changing already, but what do you think will be there even more?
Yeah, no, I think all of these things are very important conversations that are happening. And it's good that they're happening. Things definitely need to change. I don't think anybody is really disputing that things should change. I think in the industry as a whole, they're going to be better at doing things better than they have been doing in the past. So you're going to see a lot of change because, advertising, I know you're talking about like Black Lives Matter. So if we're putting all white people in ads, that's what people are seeing, and that's not fair to a lot of the population. So these are things that we all need to change as a whole. And it's something that you will see the industry change over time, ideally sooner than later. And it's good that these conversations are happening. It's good that people are actually open to having these conversations.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Like my wife is working on Me Too, actually, which is great. So like her and I get to have those conversations about things that are changing and things that need to change.
That's a great thing, and I think you always talk with the students on how important those things are, because I think not only selling products, but try to change people's mentality and people in society itself. It's a power that I think every advertising professional have in their hands, and they need to notice that.
Yeah, and we need to speak to the people who are buying these products, and that's not just white people. That's not just white men. So that's something important that people need to realize, is that we need to talk to everyone.
Kelly, it was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for the time you have here, and it was a pleasure to have you. I will definitely also have a few of the recommendations. I will send an email to Matt Camara to have him as a guest.
Talk to Matt. If you have Matt on the podcast, it'll be a very exciting podcast to listen to.
Last time I saw Matt, he was in a vintage photography fair. That I was buying stuff there and film, and he was there, and we had a little chat. And because he's really into photography too, so
that sounds like something that Matt would do. Him and I used to have some pretty in-depth debates about time travel arcs within Back to the Future movies and Terminator, and like, talks about Jurassic Park, and it was like pretty heated debates. So he's amazing to talk to.
Well, we can have a podcast just about that.
He could talk about time travel for a good hour and a half, no problem.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God. Okay. All right, Kelly. Thank you once again. This is Kelly Finnamore, Senior Copywriter as Isobar and Mohawk College alumni.
Hey, thank you.
Kelly, thank you so much. I hope next year I will get my motorcycle license so we can ride together, man.
I would be happy to ride with you in Hamilton. Yeah.
All right. All right. You take care, man.
Thanks, Raf. You too.
Thank you. Until next time, guys. Rapscast.